All right, we're going to start now. The name of this presentation is called The Blockchain and JavaScript. So it's going to be introductory material about the blockchain and how it relates to JavaScript. So let's begin. Who am I? My name is Portia Burton. I am a full stack developer at the Atlantic magazine. And I became interested in blockchain technology actually like 6 months ago. I thought it was amazing. I read a Deloitte white paper about it. And I'm like, oh, wow, can I do stuff with this? So that's why I'm here today, and that's why I'm in front of you. Before we begin, when I talk to my friends about blockchain, the first thing they say is, oh, Bitcoin, and it seems like they don't know a whole lot about blockchain technology, so why don't we go over the basics first. What is a blockchain? Keep in mind this is an imperfect description, but I think it is useful. A blockchain is basically a mix between a database and BitTorrent. It's a data store that does not have like a database administrator. And it has many different uses, which we will go over later on in this presentation. A blockchain is not to be confused with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency. It was a creation based on a paper by Satoshi Nakamoto named Bitcoin Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. This is not the first time that cryptocurrency came about. Like you can find examples of cryptocurrency back in the 1990s and early aughts. But this was the first time where you had the theory and you also had the technology go together. It's peer-to-peer transaction. What does peer-to-peer mean? Peer-to-peer means like, I've had this problem when I was traveling abroad. Let's say I want to send money to my friend Bob, and my name is Alice. At this point, if I'm in a place like the Netherlands or even China, I have to go through Western Union. Using something like the blockchain, I can directly send money with minimum fees to my friend Bob. A blockchain can also work as a way where you can interact or you can make administrative decisions without like an administrative body or without a government per se. Well, parts of the government. We're not talking about complete anarchy here. So once again, Bitcoin versus blockchain. Bitcoin is part of the blockchain and it's what popularized this technology. Blockchain is also a digital ledger of transactions. Each transaction is cryptographically signed. Bitcoins are trustless, which means you don't have trust with a password, you don't have trust with like a third party. It's just you and the other person, and it's a system that is not based on like authority or based on trust or based on like passwords. And the Bitcoin blockchain is open to everyone. For the remainder of this presentation, we will mostly focus on blockchain. And the question that I tried to answer this year, and especially this summer, is, can an average developer build blockchain applications? Once again, I don't have a background in cryptography. I am more than willing to contribute to open source projects, but my main goal is to create something that an end user would find useful and that solves problems. And the short answer is, yes, we can. But first, some more background. So there are many different types of cryptocurrencies. This is an example of a cryptocurrency exchange. There's actually hundreds of different cryptocurrencies. Most people look at the first top 6. As an aside, you see number 2 is Ethereum and number 6 is Ethereum Classic. What is that about? If any of you have been following the Ethereum drama, basically in June, several $1 million was stolen from an account. It was a hack. And the core developers of Ethereum decided that in order to solve this problem, they were going to hard fork Ethereum. So Ethereum Classic is Ethereum pre-hard fork, and Ethereum is post-hard fork. I want to say that most services use Ethereum, but I believe Jax, I don't know if I got that correctly, Jax is actually thinking of supporting Ethereum Classic. So this is a huge controversy in the Ethereum community. And yes, Ethereum. So what is Ethereum and why are we talking about it? This is the latest release of Ethereum. Ethereum it takes the blockchain technology and it brings it to the next level. What I mean by next level is Ethereum it's a programmable blockchain. And every new blockchain spawned from Ethereum has the same properties as the original Ethereum blockchain. This is really important because you could make blockchains with Bitcoin, but those different child blockchains would not have the same capabilities as the Bitcoin blockchain, which is not true for Ethereum. Ethereum Virtual Machine is a low-level machine language for Ethereum. It is Turing complete, which means you can use regular classical programming languages. This is not true for Bitcoin. One practical limitation of this is that Bitcoin does not have looping capabilities, and this can be a deterrent from creating blockchains with Bitcoin. And Ethereum also has multiple states. With Bitcoin, it's a binary, it's either spent or unspent, but when you're dealing with Ethereum, there are more than 2 different states. There are 2 main consensus mechanisms. The first is proof of work. The proof of work uses the Atash algorithm, and that is based on Bitcoin's Dagger Hashimoto's algorithm. And instead of using Merkle trees, it uses Patricia trees, which is very similar to Merkle. And there's proof of stake. The current version of Ethereum uses the proof of work, and proof of work actually uses mining. So if you want Ether, you would mine it. But proof of stake would actually not use this mining technology. And it is based on, it calculates the weight of the nodes being proportional to the computational resources. And I see a Unicode mistake there, that there's supposed to be a pick and a chain. Anyhow, so we'll see that in one moment. Smart contracts. I have to say that what interests me in blockchain wasn't so much about cryptocurrency, although I do have Bitcoins, and Bitcoins are amazing. As an aside, I like Bitcoins because I'm starting to get more into finance, and it's interesting to see my Bitcoins appreciate and depreciate. And it's gotten me into other areas of finance, which we can talk about at another time. And I am going a little bit off of subject. So smart contracts. What are smart contracts? Smart contracts are stored on a blockchain and they are executed in code. Many smart contracts now use Solidity. Solidity has JavaScript syntax. I believe Serpent, if you are a Python programmer, you would probably use Serpent, which has syntax that is similar to Python. It is powered by gas. This is an interesting concept because if you have a contract that is computationally expensive, you're not only paying with your resources, but you're paying with financial resources. You're paying with gas. Gas is a denomination of Ether. So there is an incentive to make your contracts not as computationally intensive so that you can spend less money on the actual compiling of your contract. And finally, people and machines can interact with your smart contract. This is, why is this important? There are many companies, well, there's some companies that are based on IoT, the Internet of Things, like Slockit. So they have computers and objects that are able to interact with your smart contract. Each smart contract has a transaction, and we've already went through some of this. Gas is the execution fee that you're paying. Value is the actual money that is going to another party. So value would be if you're party A, party B will get value, but the cost of that transaction would be the gas. Start gas is your maximum. That's how much you would want to pay for the transaction. So if your maximum is 1 Ether and the transaction is 1.1, then that transaction will actually not go through. And you have gas price, which is the maximum that the receiver would want to pay for this transaction. So what are the practical applications of smart contracts? Well, one of the practical applications would be self-executing legal contracts. So instead of having an agreement that is based on legalese, you can have a contract that uses code, and this would decrease the need, not eliminate, but decrease the need for lawyers, and it will also decrease the need for courts. I don't know how many of you are familiar with American Idol. I don't watch it. You can create an American Idol kind of app where you can vote using a token as opposed to your phone. I read recently that American Idol was a huge force in teaching Americans on how to text. Like they learned texting through like actually voting for their favorite performer. So maybe a program like American Idol can like educate people about smart contracts. Company boards can be ran virtually. So instead of having a chairperson, you can actually have all the administration handled by the contract itself. So if you're a board member, instead of going to meetings, you can use a token and vote for a proposal using the smart contract. Let's see. There's also the Dropbox business model where you can have your own blockchain and you can sell spaces to different people, encrypted spaces. And finally, predicting financial futures. I use the word Oracle. Oracle, you can think of it as almost an API for the blockchain. So a blockchain, you have like A and B, you have the two parties, and Oracle can be external information. So let's say you're a farmer and you're interested in knowing about the weather, you can have a weather oracle go into the contract and decisions can be made based on this external source, which is the oracle. Ethereum chains, yellow rust. There are three main chains. The first is the official, the public blockchain. Everyone can read and interact with it. It's similar to the Bitcoin public blockchain. There's the testnet blockchain. The testnet blockchain, it's not the official blockchain, and it doesn't use real ether. It uses fake ether. This is important because if you are drafting a contract and you want to know how computationally expensive it is, and you don't want to waste your ether, using a testnet is a really good option for testing and debugging contracts before going onto the public blockchain. And finally, there are private blockchains. Like you have companies like Deloitte who are probably the most interested in private blockchains. Private blockchains are blockchains that there are two different modes. Private blockchain can be like a public blockchain and people can actually find your private blockchain, or a private blockchain can be like a private party, invite only. So you can invite the different addresses that you would want to connect to your private blockchain. And that's actually what we're going to create today, is a private blockchain. So how to build this custom or private blockchain? The first thing that you will need is a Genesis file. A Genesis file, for the most part, is like your config for a blockchain. So if you want to see what a Genesis file looks like. By the way, my apologies for how small the font is. I encourage you to look at the slides like after the presentation so you can actually read the font. So this is an example of Genesis file. It's in JSON. and this is the configs that you have for like your private blockchain. You don't have to create your own Genesis. You can actually just actually auto-create one. But I like creating my own Genesis file because I like being able to use stuff such as allocate. Give me a moment. Allocate is, if you don't want to mine for Ether, allocate is how much money you can put in your private blockchains. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our own blockchain. So I'm going to the command line, and before you start, you're actually going to init your private blockchain to the config file. So we're going to call, wow, this is really bad. My apologies for how small everything. Let me see. Alt plus. So there we go. Wow, this is not ideal. So once again, I encourage you to look at the slides after the presentation. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting, wow, that is really small, an identity, which is I'm initting my config file. And the identity is I'm giving my blockchain a name. I'm calling my private blockchain hackchain. So there we go. After I init it, I can actually go and interact with it. So here are the commands. I have testing here. That's the name of one of my hack chains, one of my blockchains, excuse me. So I'm going to call this hackchain. And there are many different parameters. I think the most important parameter would be console. Console is where you can actually use JavaScript to interact with your blockchain. And there's network ID. Network ID is what makes a private blockchain private. So I go in, and there, I have a blockchain. It was that simple. It was less than 2 minutes. So some of the things I can do in my blockchain is I can look at the accounts, the different addresses. I can see how much money I have. So I have almost 20,000 ethers, which is a lot of money. I wish that was real. And I can, and this is, I don't know about you, but I really like mining. And this is me mining my own chain, and it's great. You can't really see the emoji, but there's a pick and there's a chain, and it's like, it's fabulous. It makes me feel like that I'm doing real work, proof of work. This is great if you are a programmer. However, you probably don't want your stakeholders dealing with the command line. No worries. There's actually a GUI that you can connect your private blockchain or any blockchain to. The GUI that we're going to use is called Mist, and Mist is a glorified Meteor app. So if you're a Meteor programmer, you can actually create a blockchain application. So let's get Mist up and running. The next part, we're going to interact with the blockchain, and we're also going to build a contract. So we're going to build a smart contract that allows people to, we're just going to build tokens with our smart contract. So there's Meteor. And this is our main contract. If you can see, we're literally making money, well, not literally, but figuratively speaking, we're making money from thin air. This is us mining, and this is the ether that we're mining, and that's the number that's going up. Or it was. Oh, that's disappointing. Okay, so if you want to create a contract, you go to the right-hand side, which is contracts. Oh, it's going up, it's going up. And you're going to pick deploy a new contract. Scroll here, and you'll say like Solidity contract source code. That's where we're going to put our source code. I actually have the source code here. So this is, and the source code we're looking at, man, this is really bad. This is Solidity. So this is all written in Solidity. Once again, if you're a Python programmer, you can use Serpent. And this is a contract that we're using to create a token. Tokens are important for voting. And to the right-hand side, if we have any bugs, it shows us the errors that we can find in our contract, or we can just put in the parameters. So we're going to give it, there. So we don't have any bugs, which is good. We're going to pick a contract. It's called My Token. Initial supply will have 200 tokens. What should the token name be? What should we name this? Node Interactive, there we go. So Node Interactive. Token symbol would be NI. And if we scroll to select fee, this shows us how, I'm over here. This shows us how much we would want to pay for the transaction. The slower the transaction, the less money that we need, the faster transaction, the more ether we need. Since we're flushed with ether, we're going to choose the fastest option, and then we'll deploy. And when we deploy, it's going to ask us for our password, and I will put the password in. And so now our contract is compiling. Oh, wow, I think it's already on a blockchain. So if you scroll, September 16th, this is our token contract being created. This is going to take about 2 or 3 minutes, so I'm going to continue with the presentation. Skip some of these. In conclusion, I am going to finish soon. What we just did is a combination of using Mist, and Mist is a Meteor app. If you want to get started, you can actually go to the official Ethereum website and look at their DAO contract. Blockchain technology. Many people ask me, oh, are you a Bitcoin or blockchain promoter? I don't call myself a promoter. I see an interesting technology, and if I think it can solve a problem, then my interest will continue. But there are definitely bugs and there are definitely issues with this technology. One, it forces different parties to be savvy about the code, which I think is a high bar, especially if you have non-technical stakeholders who are part of this smart contract. It's still a very new platform and technology. This Ethereum has been around since 2014, so it's about 2 years old. Here's a list of Solidity contract bugs. I'm not going to go through all of them. The first bug, the transaction ordering bug, is the bug that enabled a hacker to steal money from a contract in June, which caused the hard fork. If you were interested in, there was actually a presentation done last Saturday. So if you're interested in all the ways a smart contract can go wrong, I have a link here. It's very entertaining. And finally, enough about me, how can you get started? So here are all the links that you would need to learn about Solidity, learn about Ethereum, learn about Meteor. And here are the frameworks. So the frameworks are like Django or Ruby on Rails for smart contracts. I haven't played with any of the frameworks yet, but the frameworks help you with not only getting a smart contract up and running, but also with like using Docker and deploying, which is useful. And finally, let's see where our coin is. So, and here is our coin, Node Interactive. We haven't put any money in it, but we have just created a coin, and we have made a private blockchain, and it could be really simple getting started. So finally, when I say finally, I mean it this time. Thank you. Any questions? Say it again. There's the democracy contract. A democracy contract is basically when you're voting for a proposal. You also have Slockit. Slockit is a business that is almost like Airbnb and Uber, where you can interact with rented stuff using a smart contract. So those are some of the different uses. It can also be used as a financial ledger. So there are banks who are using smart contracts to show like different transactions. Yeah, you're welcome. Any more questions? Nope. Thank you.